Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Let's Have Renaissance, a podcast about writing, editing, publishing, literature, the arts, and more. I am Ito Otini.
And I'm Makaya Otini, and today we're speaking with Steve Chang. Steve is a writer and musician based in California. He's currently working on 2 collections of linked short stories. His work has been supported by several residencies, including MacDowell, where we first met him. We're excited to be with him today.
Thank you for tuning in. We're excited that you're here. Why don't you also subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends?
And if you know anyone who wants to come on the podcast, please do send them our way. Also, if you haven't yet, sign up for our free newsletter where we share updates, resources, and opportunities. To support the podcast, you can make a one-time donation through our website or purchase a subscription to our blog where you'll find more premium content and resources at thedatekeepers.com. Thank you for being a part of our community.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. How is life?
Oh, doing okay, I think. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I'm glad that we're finally connected again.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
A little bit over 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very fond memories. That was my first residency and it changed my life, so.
Yeah, ours too.
Ours too. And
Oh, no way.
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it was so validating just to be among, When I came back from MacDowell, I told everyone, I'm in the Illuminati now. I've joined the Illuminati. That's what it kind of feels like, you're there with the greatest minds in the nation and whatnot, and you feel like, oh, I belong here. Yeah.
Well, I
So
mean,
nice.
okay, so we're alumni and we're the literati. So you put those together, you do get Illuminati.
Oh, yeah.
So we figured we would do something a little different. We usually do the reading at the end, but we thought it might be fun to do the reading at the beginning and then talk about the story. And we really like your writing, so we
Sure.
thought we would do the reading at the top of the episode here. How does that sound?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read from a piece called The Nonsense Brothers Detective Agency. It was my first attempt to write a story using a bunch of emojis, published in Have, Has, Had. Okay. This is The Nonsense Brothers Detective Agency. Mondays. Haha. I love my wife, Gwen. She's the best. Today, she sprinkled paprika in my oatmeal. To prank me, I guess. And I didn't figure it out until halfway through. Imagine my shock. What? Not cinnamon? Well, she got me good, but how could I let on that she had? I slurped the whole mess down and licked my spoon. Then I dropped it clattering into the bowl. I said, delish. She turned back to the sink to her share of the dishes, clinking and clanking. She muttered, I thought so. I said, thought what? Oh, just testing a theory. Tip number 1 for a healthy relationship. Surprises keep things fresh. Gwen's always been kind of a kooky gal. She's the one who first asked me to write down my thoughts. I said, why? I'm not keeping any secrets. And she said I was suppressing my feelings. All right, Dr. Phil. Recently, she started therapy with Julia, some lady who wore piles of hippie shawls and wooden beads around her neck. You know the type. But apparently, she'd had her mind blown. Julia told her neglect is another form of abuse. Which, okay, might sound logical and all, but had it helped? Even a little? More like the opposite. Now, Gwen's always tight-lipped, and when I try to cheer her up, which it seems is all I do lately, she says, I don't engage when upset. Well, lucky you. Finally, I told her, I'm not hiding anything. I just don't think about stuff. And she said, Robert. Then I had to listen. She only calls me that when things get dicey. Robert, she said, I'm really trying here. Yeesh. Robert. I hadn't heard it like that since I was a kid. It's the sound of a chore I forgot to do. A pig for dinner that Gwen repeats and says, Are you sure? It's a city I wouldn't visit, like Sacramento, or something even worse, but in which somehow I live. I wonder what life would be like if I was called something different. Something better like, I don't know, Lance McCool? That sounds all right. With a name like that, I could have been on MTV's The Real World. Lord knows I had the personality. I could have been a lot of things. Well, how hard could it be to write down your thoughts? It turns out pretty hard. The problem's not the writing, it's in having the thoughts. What do people think about? The past? Forever? I wish I liked soccer or baseball. Then I'd always have something nicer on my mind. Question: how can fish sauce smell bad when it tastes so good? Answer: because fish don't have noses. Today, I told Gwen I'd thought of another good joke. Please, she said. No, listen. I was lying on the carpet as if the furry pink fibers were stomach lining and I was hoping to be digested. I haven't been to work in days. When Gwen asks why not, I say, my back's been killing me. Honestly, it takes a lot of willpower to stand up. For snacks, I chomp on cheese bricks I keep on my belly. They're solid and thick, really comforting. I work the wrappers down like tight pants, like candy bars. Let's just say I've been coming up with lots of jokes. Question: why do cows have hooves? Because they're cows, she said. She was clicking her mouse intently and moving it all around, but I could see the laptop screen reflected in her glasses. She wasn't that busy. Not even close. If you're wondering what graphic designers do all day, surprise, they look at Pinterest. Apparently, they really love bath towels. The more fancy, the better. Who knew? Not me. And that's not a joke, she added. That's a riddle. Wrong, I said. It's because they lactose. She closed the laptop carefully, touching only its corners. They lactose, I said. Lactose? What happened to you, she said. Why are you like this now? Now that's a riddle. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an inventor. Then I heard the best things had already been invented. I told my mom I designed an underwater car, and she said, that's called a submarine. So I told her I'd make a flying car, and she said, that's just an airplane. What she probably meant was that I should be practical. When I'm feeling chipper, that's what I think. Ma, she was just trying to be practical. Chewing food, count to 50. Brushing teeth, you count 200. I wanted to listen and be a good boy, so if I asked if an up and down stroke would be a 1 count or 2, she snapped, don't be sarcastic. I'd hear that pretty often. In 8th grade, Coach Ferguson said I even ran sarcastic. I pumped my knees and arms the way he's shown us. Pendulums, levers, but still, he told me, forget it, Chen. It's something about it's just your whole body. Some people you'll never make happy. Anyways, a week later, when I was talking to her again, I told my mom I'd invent a machine that could give hugs to kids that maybe needed them. And she said, are you stupid? Kids don't have money. How can they buy your machine? I guess it's pretty hard to come up with a good idea. If I did, though, if I had just one in my life, I could probably really do something with that. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes, I love it.
I gotta say, I relate a little bit because when I was like 6, I had an idea for a pants coat.
Yeah.
Because, like, your upper body, you can cover it with a coat really easily. Yeah. Take it off, put it on. Uh-huh. Weather fluctuations are not really going to be an issue for you. But what about the lower body? That's a problem. And it took me a couple years to realize that the problem is like the structure of the legs. And that's why it's not really been invented. And then like a few years after that, I saw a guy on the subway wearing one.
He was wearing your pants coat? He stole your idea?
Yeah, well, and it didn't look like it worked very well, too. So it was like doubly demoralizing because someone else got there first and they couldn't even pull it off because it was never a good idea. So,
oh my God! Did you sketch it out? What did it look like in your mind? What is a pants coat?
Yeah, it was just in my mind. I mean, there's a reason I became a writer and not a visual artist first off, but then also like I think if I had sketched it out, I would have realized a lot sooner that it just practically wouldn't work. Like that's when I would have run up against reality. But yeah, that revelation hit me belatedly.
Well, I have a lot of questions here about your story. And my first question is, where does the voice come from?
The first origins of the story, it started on Facebook, actually. This was during, I don't know, like 2018, 2019, something like that. And this was an era of very kind of detached irony. I think I first started posting Facebook statuses in this sort of very ironic, quote unquote, normcore kind of voice, just to be kind of meta ironic and feel what the limits of that were. This was an era of very detached irony on social media. Everybody was pretending not to care about things. Everyone was so over things. And I felt like there was something really rich about that sort of irony and being irony poisoned. So I started to construct a story about somebody who has pretended to be normal for so long that they forget how to stop pretending. And thematically, it has a lot to do with masking for me. We all have to perform some sort of normalcy or else we risk exclusion from society. So yeah, sometimes we forget how to take off the mask, maybe. That's where this came from.
And how about the power of thinking? He's not capable of thinking and he's even questioning what it means to think.
Yeah. I feel like it's possible to become dissociated from the self to such a degree that you lose some sense of interiority, maybe. Yeah. I feel like maybe Camus was trying to do something about that with The Stranger, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be so detached and disconnected from others and even from yourself that it's like, yeah, you just lose that connection. It breaks. And then you can feel the lack, but you might not know how to reattach, how to reconnect.
It makes you wonder if Camus had access to emojis, what he would have done with them. That's a pretty bold choice. And I think it makes sense for the narrator in the story, but I don't think I've ever seen it done. I don't think I've ever seen emojis in a piece of literary fiction. So how did you decide you were just going to, go all the way with that?
Oh, man. I don't know. I was probably drinking a lot. Just wanted to try something different. I feel like at that time I was very interested in just trying different voices out to kind of explore. Yeah. I was very tired of how literary fiction was always like third person, past tense, limited, omniscience. It bothered me. Something about that really bothered me. Like, why is this the standard format for what has kind of calcified into a certain kind of like genre of writing almost? Yeah.
And with emojis, did you have them in mind before you started writing? Or was it an afterthought? Because sometimes the characters just make their own choices.
Yeah, I think I just chose the emojis that I personally use most often. I feel like maybe me as a person even, it's hard for me to convey emotions sometimes. It's hard for me to articulate how I'm feeling. So I just dropped the emoji in there, like, here, that's how I'm feeling. So, there's no misunderstanding.
And is this the only story that you've written or intend to write with this character? Or is this a character who's going to show up again in your work? Either under this name or masked under different names or,
Yeah, that's a fun thought. Yeah. I wonder how this character might disguise himself and reappear elsewhere.
And I'm curious, do you distinguish your voice from that of your characters?
I've never been fully comfortable with the idea that a writer has a specific voice. A lot of writing advice is like, find your voice, find your voice. But for a lot of people who maybe have done a lot of masking or code switching, in their lives, the idea of having a singular natural voice, I'm not sure if that sits very comfortably. Yeah. So have you encountered something similar in your own writing, Ito?
Well, I met countless messed up people, so there's not a shortage. I just, fictionalize the thing and get the character out there, and we're good to go. My fiction characters are totally different than me.
I think this might be connected to what Makaya was saying earlier about, do you have certain characters that recur? Maybe not certain characters that recur, or like a singular voice that I think of as home, but maybe there's a certain mode of haunted sad boy aesthetic that feels like something I'm still working through. So I might orbit that mode when I'm trying to work something out. Yeah.
Are you working on a longer project, a book?
I don't know if this is 2 collections of short stories or 1 collection, but one is sort of in the realist mode. There's a lot of crime, drugs, violence, gangs kind of stuff. And then the other set of stories is more speculative. It's slipstream. We say slipstream now for this particular mode. And to me, I feel like there's crossover. I feel like this might be 1 book, but when I look at the market, I think maybe it has to be 2. I'm not sure yet. But for me, I feel like they're related and they sort of reflect and illuminate one another, these 2 manuscripts.
And why do you write?
Me specifically?
Just specifically, yeah.
Little moi. I think at the core of it, it's escapism and wish fulfillment. That's where it comes from. Escapism, wish fulfillment, and the need to be heard. I think for a lot of writers, maybe I don't want to overgeneralize, but they were maybe, quiet people or shy people, introverted people. Nobody, wanted to talk to them. Nobody listened to them. They felt unseen, unheard. And then the page becomes their way to, express all of that.
Do you feel like you do that differently in realist fiction? Why do you do both?
It's easier for me to write fictionalized versions of what I've experienced in my life in the realist mode. Fictionalized versions of painful or dark things and whatnot. But if I try to access the truth of something, if I try to write nonfiction about it, it is very difficult. I can't access that directly. So I have to layer and reroute through, the fantastical, the hyperbolic, the et cetera, and that's the only way I can access those feelings, So actually the slipstream stuff might be more autobiographical or more nonfiction than more truthful than the realist stuff. I mean, realism as a mode is a relatively recent development. Literary fiction is even more recent. For the majority of human history, our stories were full of gods and monsters and talking animals and things like that. And I feel like centering realism as if this were the gold standard for fiction, I feel like storytelling is eternal. Storytelling is eternal, and it has not been limited to these sort of categories of fiction, nonfiction for most of human history.
Do you have any advice or anything else you would like to share?
Just keep writing. Failure is fuel. It's good for you. Share your stuff. Don't be selfish. Don't be a weirdo about it. Be a weirdo when you're alone on the page or, in creation, and then share your weirdness. Share your weirdness.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
And your
I love
weirdness.
your weirdness
That
too, guys.
You take care, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.